came back to Kansas City in 2000. I was living in London, and my parents died, so that was the impetus to come back. And I hadn't lived in Kansas City for quite a while, and it was the first Friday crossroads activity that opened my eyes to the fact that the art market, the art scene had changed a lot. And so that was encouragement for me to stay here. Plus the fact that Kansas City is a very easy place to find a house and have a studio and do all of those things that you just couldn't do in a city like London.
I think it's amazing because it really has grown. This is a good example here. It was just the crossroads, but things are going on all over the place. There's lots of organizations supporting artists. You can always want more, of course, you know, but yeah, I think it's kind of an incredible time. I mean, I think Kansas City stands out probably nationally for its art scene.
I think it's getting that way. Yeah, I think people who come here, they get their eyes opened a little bit and they are able to see what the potential is. I think they're showing that if you have a lively art scene, your economy is better, people support that, people like that, and so I don't know. I think it creates a healthier environment for a city. The health of the society does depend on a healthy art scene, and I don't mean to say that in a pejorative way, but I do think that it allows the community to have a conversation, and it opens up conversations that I don't think that would even exist without art being present.
Okay. Well, I was thinking more about, I think exposure to art helps people think differently, and I think that's good. My background, I mean, I'm a scientist. I trained as a scientist, but I see the importance of art through that. A few years ago, I did a show at the Dykes Library of some digital drawings. And somebody said to me, well, you know, that those were really good for the med students looking at it because it made them think more about the structure of things, you know, the things that they were looking at. So that's why I think the importance of it is this synergy. Thank you, that's the word. That's the word between art and the other parts of society. Because we do work independently, but it can't help but bleed into each other. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
We're all in the same ocean, you know. We're all just sort of, so yeah.
Well, even when our studios were separate, we still would be influenced with each other just because we would look at each other's work a lot. And I think it's really interesting with this show in particular, and we have not shown together for quite a while. I can really see how these drawings and the sculpture have so many touch points.
Yeah.
And
well, I think the interesting, I think, because like I say, I'm a scientist, but I've always been interested in art. Joe's grew up as an artist, but he's always been interested in science, so we're in the science library. Right. So I think we have these things that are they're all tangled up with each other, and so of course, I think we find the same kinds of things interesting. And at the same time, we have enough of a different perspective on them. I think that makes it interesting as well.
Right.
But I mean, you can see with this show how all those things work well together. Yeah. In this work, I have definite things I've been thinking about. I mean, like I was obsessed with invertebrates, and there are a lot of those in there. But they kind of have to develop, and it's the fun thing about them is they can kind of be these problems when I start drawing something. Sometimes it's just sort of a shape that I've started with, and then I'm trying to figure out where it's going from there. And some of them just didn't seem to be working, but eventually they seemed to, because there are 1,215 of them before this body left, and I went on to some other things. I've done several different phases since then. You know, I grew up in the Ozarks, and we had a creek and a great big wooded area near my parents' house that I spent tons of time. So I was always in the creek, you know, getting things, and so there was that. So I've had this fondness, this love for nature really forever, because that's what I grew up with. And that's always been part of it. That's why I became a biologist, you know. So that's where that is.
It was just a natural evolution that I started volunteering at the site, and it would be a situation where things would come in, and it was cans of paint that initially got me interested in this, and it would be a can of paint. I don't want to get too granular with this, but there would be a can of paint that would actually have something dried in it. And when I would pop that lid and I would see this perfectly formed piece of sculpture, it blew my mind. I mean, this thing was beautiful. It had all the bells and whistles for me. I mean, there was a patina, there was a shape to it, there was just a natural, it fit my aesthetic just perfectly. And so I began small. I mean, these things were something that you could hold in your hand. And it just grew over the years. And I think when I started incorporating plastic into the work, that's when for me anyway, there became more of an environmental feel of making sure that this stuff wasn't going to go to the landfill. I mean, I still do this where I collect on a Thursday, basically big children's toys like big wheels and things like that are just out waiting for the landfill. I'll load it up, and I have a tree that I've kind of like put all of this stuff on there just as storage. But I think at some point, you know, never want to talk about projects that aren't happening, but and I've made a few attempts at this, but I would like to incorporate the bigger plastic pieces and make more of a maybe even public art kind of situation. I don't know, but it is something that I'm exploring, and I would like to use materials that would otherwise just go into the landfill. I want to make interesting things, and I really want that to be the thing. But I think for me, I do feel a responsibility to that. And I don't know if that comes from my experience when I worked in an AIDS hospice for 5 years, and it was a time when nothing was really happening. And it was here in Kansas City where there were, I mean, obviously we had a president at the time where they wouldn't even say the word AIDS, and it was just something that I think it instilled in me a sense of responsibility. That and don't depend on others doing it. I mean, you have to do this. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would work in an AIDS hospice for 5 years, but it happened, and it was life-changing, and I don't think maybe for the complete good, but it certainly was life-changing. And I'm like, sometimes I kind of think, gosh, is making art enough? Should you really be doing something else? But this is my voice. This is the way for me to react to the world.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, and at the same time, because this is a thing that for me, a lot of artists tend to get away from the world, and I think you really need to be involved in the world. There's that saying that I see something that's wrong, and I say somebody should do something about that, and then I realized I'm somebody. And I think that's both of us. If there's something we can do, we've got to do it. And I wish I would see more artists doing physical things out in the world rather than just, because I think some people, not to complain about them, but but I wish with the things going on in the world that people would do more, would do something. I see too many people just walking through their lives and not doing anything. Although I have to say, in the wake of the Supreme Court decision, we've seen a tremendous outpour. Of course, I always think more, because these are important things that are going on in the world, and people just seem to be walking through their lives like,
Yeah.
It's just I kind of focus sometimes on artists or LGBT, our own community, that why aren't we doing more? But it's kind of,
As a group, we need to join forces on this, and basically we have to save our democracy. I mean, that is, I don't think people even understand what that means. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's amazing to me.
Well, and two, I'm thinking too, that's artists have skills. Let's use those for other things. Because some stuff I've seen needs help in that area to make more of an impact.